Folks, the class doesn't officially start until 10 minutes after, and I like to use that time to just talk about the news. There's always so much happening in this business. So I'm just going to mention a few news articles that caught my attention. Um, as you know, Trump is going to be inaugurated on Monday, and he's bringing in a new Gilded Age, and very, very crazy people are going to be in charge of our country, like Elon Musk. He's going to be incredibly influential, and the man seems to be completely insane. More about that in a minute. So they're talking about whistleblowers in big trouble. So people who report malfeasance are likely to have trouble. As you know, even journalists that report the truth, like the newspaper that reported a poll in Iowa that said Trump was going to lose Iowa. So then he won Iowa, and now he's suing that newspaper for daring to publish something he doesn't like, even though it's just a poll, and the poll was wrong. So Trump said all along he wants to shut down any newspaper, and he wants to shut down MSNBC. He wants to jail Jimmy Kimmel. He wants to jail Mike Zuckerberg. He wants to jail journalists that say anything against him. And this is the way it is in Russia. If you say anything against Putin, you'll just get pushed out a window. And he wants that here. So, and he's likely to be able to achieve a lot of it here. He's putting in people. The new head of the FBI is going to be a guy who published a book, Rakesh Patel, of like 50 people he wants to jail from the FBI for daring to oppose Trump. So we do appear to be moving into a period of oligarchy and a period like the Red Scare. We've had all this before, by the way, from the same people. It was Joseph McCarthy in the 40s that started a huge campaign to stamp out communism in America and just falsely accused a bunch of people of being communist who weren't, and tried to punish them and jail them and hurt them. And his lawyer that helped him do that was the lawyer who later became Trump's lawyers, who taught him all these tricks. So it's the same people, generations of them, learning the same tricks, bringing this stuff back. And so let me go to Elon. Sam Harris is a famous intellectual, and some people don't like his opinions. He's famously an atheist and very much opposed to Islam, but he is a very prominent thinker, and he used to be friends with Elon Musk. And Elon Musk seems to have completely gone insane. A lot of people have wondered. About 2 or 3 years ago, he was an ordinary tech guy. He knew his science. He pushed his companies, and he was mostly a Democrat, too. But around the time of the pandemic, he completely got red-pilled, and he's gone insane. And it's not just that he's moved his politics to being conservative, which would be harmless. I mean, there's nothing wrong with normal conservatives, but he moved to the far right and complete contempt for the truth, which is amazing to me and everybody. And Sam Harris writes about this. What happened is, when the pandemic hit, he, like Trump, said, oh, don't worry about it all. It'll be fine. COVID doesn't matter. It'll never spread very much. Trump said the same thing. But at this time, it had already spread in Italy and caused huge infections and deaths. And so Elon said it'll never even get up to like 30,000 cases in America. So he made a bet with Sam Harris, who was a friend at that time, to donate like $1 million to charity if it rose above 30,000 cases. And so when it did, he messaged him and said, now it's not only 30,000 cases, it's 30,000 deaths and 500,000 cases. So we're going to pay up the bet. And then he refused to answer, refused to pay up, and started lying about him on X, saying he's a rotten guy and accusing him of false things, which he loves to do. He loves to accuse people of being pedophiles and rapists on X who aren't, because it's a way to get his army of followers to harass them and threaten them, and they have to pay for security and everything. So he just seems to be a really crazy guy. He accuses people of completely false things and gets them in big trouble and just doesn't care. And like Trump, he just doesn't pay his bills, he doesn't pay his staff, he doesn't pay the rent, he doesn't pay the server fees to keep the server up, he doesn't pay the fees for the severance pay due people he fired. It's just amazing. It just seems to be like a robber baron of old, where he's just noble and he will just trample on the lesser people with no consideration, and the law doesn't apply to him any more than it applies to Trump. They both break the law all the time and seem to have no consequences. So, we're headed into the Gilded Age. This all happened here before in the 20s. We had a period of great corruption like this, where there were extremely rich oligarchs, essentially, that just trampled on people, and that led to the Great Depression, and that led to socialism in America in the form of the New Deal. So presumably that will all happen again over the next couple of decades. There'll be a backlash to this, where we will begin to tax the rich again and use that money to support the poor. But we're going through the period now of oligarchy, where the rich and powerful just do whatever they want and trample on the rest of us. And a new thing, I think, which was not true in the 20s, they just make up complete lies, absolutely false statements, and just push them. Having discovered that since they control the media, they can just people will just absorb propaganda. This is what Putin does. Anyway, so we'll be watching that happen. This is amazing. I've been waiting for this for years. This struck me as the most deadly thing in the world. They've now made tiny drones. A drone only an inch or two across. Now, if they get these down to the size of a mosquito, I think it'll be the most powerful weapon we've ever had, because you could just fly in and inject a drop of poison in somebody, and how could there be any defense? You'd have to have everybody in airtight rooms all the time. And this has been a science fiction idea, but then they found out they couldn't make these very effectively because they'd only fly a few seconds before they break the wings. But this guy figured out a way to imitate insects better by making flexible wings and flexible connections so it distributes the stress. So now this thing will run for like 10 or 20 minutes. However, right now it has to have a power supply connected by a cable, but they're working on fixing that. There's a lot of ways to fix that. The most obvious thing is microwaves or something where you just beam energy to it. So this, I think, is an amazing step forward for drone technology. And I think there'll be, if you think about this, one of the science fiction staples has been smart dust. If you could have dust-sized drones, then you could just do anything. You could spy on anybody anywhere. You could fly inside things and see what's in there. So, small drones, I think, are going to really move war forward the way the big drones have all totally changed the face of warfare now. So this is interesting. AI is everywhere. I'm teaching a lot of AI classes, and I'm helping corporations write their AI security policies, and most people do not understand how extremely insecure AI is. And here's a interesting clue. So Google had their character AI is the highly controversial place where you can choose to make a chatbot that will have the character of someone. People choose like a fictional character from Game of Thrones or Marvel Comics. And then you can have a long conversation with this person, and they adopt that person's personality. And people develop like close relationships with these things. But it went off the rails, and it started giving answers like this. Gibberish with words mixed into it, always including the word dildo and a few other words. And nobody knows why. This kind of thing has happened before. There was a paper that came out about 9 months ago where they were trying to develop jailbreaks for large language models. And a jailbreak is something that tricks a large language model into violating its security policy. And what they did was they just told the large language models, repeat the word hello endlessly. And it will just go hello, hello, hello. But after about 1 million hellos, it will just start regurgitating pages of its training data, which is not supposed to do. So there are strange failure modes of these artificial intelligences where they do strange things and nobody understands why or how to stop it. That's the problem with these things. They were not programmed to do any of this. They learned to do it, like you would train a dog or a small child to do something. And so they didn't really learn it very well. And so if you want it to stop doing something, you can't find a line of code and say, if you're doing this bad thing, then stop. There is no code. All you can do is try to train it to stop doing the bad thing, but all of your training doesn't have perfect effect. So anyway, the AIs are coming everywhere, and here's another one. So the latest thing is AI agents. Everybody is following Salesforce. Salesforce seems to have the first commercial model product that's good here, where you don't just have a large language model where you ask it a question and get an answer. You have an agent that will do a job for you. Like, I'm going to take a trip in Hawaii. Book my airplane, book my hotel, come up with 10 attractions, make reservations, call my friends and tell them how they can join, and take care of all things like that, like sort of administrative assistant or a butler. That's the idea. And so ChatGPT has a version of this called ChatGPT Tasks, and he tried it. And the thing is, it's promising, but it, just like I was saying, it frequently doesn't really obey your instructions. They're pretty unreliable. So he talks about the flaws here. He was able to assign tasks, but it did things like not wait the correct amount of time, not really do the job right when it gets there, and so on. I mean, you give it an order, but the orders are sort of suggestions, and it has other ways to do things. So, by the way, that's true of human assistants too, right? They might just not be very efficient or very smart, so when you give them instructions, they don't really understand them very well or do a good job. Anyway, Microsoft has been researching how to make secure AI. They built AI into all Microsoft products for the last couple of years, and yet they're finding that people are not happy with them. They tried to sell them for $20 a month, and people refused to pay, so they bundled it with Microsoft Office. People still say those AI assistants are not, in fact, helping people much. They don't seem to be much good, and one of the problems is they're not very secure. They don't really obey their instructions very well. Hey there. And so they've now come up with a sort of theoretical plan that they'll never really be able to secure them. And we're going to use them anyway. Same thing's true of your humans, by the way. How do you really know that your human staff are not breaking the rules? You never really know. So you accept that they have a certain chance of breaking the rules, and you put some controls around them, like auditing and so on. You have layers of security to hopefully compensate for the parts of your product that are hopelessly insecure. So we'll see what comes of that. Anyway, let me stop this.